energy. That's what I want. I'll buy it.
I think I just take Zoe's energy and kind of like run with it, because me, I'm like a behind the scenes kind of person. I'm not like Zoe likes to be customer facing and everything. And as much as I love you guys, I feel like my skills are like better done through email and the logs, and Zoe like feels like her skills are better done like on the Zoom calls and through like more like face-to-face interactions. So I try to just like emulate what she's good at and go from there. Yeah, I don't know. I try to rest as much as possible in order to like make it all happen. But this is yeah, it's been a long week. I think it has been for everybody. I would assume everybody's heard the news in Boulder and things like that, which really reaches home to this community, especially, that being in the neighborhood where some of our athletes live, where Zoe used to live, and things like that. So pretty tough times. Oh, hold on one second. Sorry. Oh, wait, no. Cool. Anyways, yeah, we've got some questions to go over today, that I'm pretty excited about. We've got a ton of questions. Most of these questions, Bowie, no, sorry. I need some backup, but Zoe's on a work call with Trail Runner right now. Oh yeah, Kristen. I hope we see you this weekend. We are still going. Yes. Cool.
Evelyn and Bowie finally get to meet, and she's
somebody needs to wear Bowie out. I took her to the park yesterday, and it wasn't as long of a session as we normally get to do. It just wasn't enough. And now she's just terrorizing.
Oh no.
Yeah.
I think Ab might be able to help with that.
I think so. As I recall, Avalanche has plenty of energy.
Yes, it has not gone down since the last time you've seen her.
Man. Cool. Okay, where was I? All right. Well, maybe we'll start with, since we're talking about dogs, maybe it's a good idea. Kristen, do you want to start us off with our question about dogs?
Yes, I do. I'm just going to pull it right up. Let's see.
And the question is simple.
Thanks.
It's running with dogs. Are there any tips and tricks, do's and don'ts?
So many tips and tricks, so many do's and don'ts. Kylie can also jump in on this, and she's like master dog extraordinaire.
Ellie runs like 50 miles a week.
Yeah, Ab's not quite to that level yet, but I think mostly with this, like a lot of people, it's dependent on the dog, right? So it's like, if you've got a super high energy pup and they can be tamed through running and exercise, awesome. That's kind of Avalanche's story. When I picked her up from the shelter outside of Vail, Colorado, I was like, there's no way I can take care of this dog. She was jumping, she was biting, she was crazy. And I couldn't leave her there, so I took her home and made her start running with me, and now she's like the best dog ever. I think another thing too is what I've learned is to always have extra water with you, especially if your dog is a snow breed or a northern breed. They tend to heat up rather quickly. So I have a collapsible rough wear bowl and like a soft flask of water specifically for Avalanche on these things, whether she's running with me or even mountain biking with Colin. It's always good to just, keep your expectations in a place where, you're not going to go out and just try to crush the run or get every Strava segment. Because realistically, your dog is probably not going to be able to do that with you the first time around. Also, snacks are really important. We'll talk about, off leash running with your dog, on leash running with your dog, but no matter what, you need to have snacks while running with your dog. They need nutrition just the same way that we do. High value treats like sliced deli meat, or something that they're really going to listen to you to get is really great. Speaking of off leash, I think it's important to do some research where you're going to be running. If dogs are not allowed off leash, keep your dogs on leash. There's a lot of places in Boulder or along the Front Range specifically, they have a lot of the Boulder open spaces are off leash for dogs as long as you have the voice and sight tag on their collar. Otherwise, it's a $50 ticket. I've definitely been guilty of getting that ticket. And if you don't pay it, they send out a warrant for your arrest, or that's what they threaten you with anyway. Then some other things I think is like All Trails Trail Run Project are just a couple websites where you can check to see if you're not in the Front Range. You can see if dogs are allowed on leash, if they're not allowed at all. Third, and probably the most important thing, is that there is no such thing as the poop fairy. Doesn't exist. So bring extra poop bags and clean up after your dog, because it's like, whether you're 10 feet from a garbage can or a mile from the garbage can, don't leave it on the side of the trail like you wouldn't leave your poop there, right? So pick it up, take it with you, find a trash can for it. And then let's see. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It really freaks me out because like sometimes Av will try to eat dog poop or deer poop or whatever, and it kind of like it makes them pretty sick, and it's also really gross. So just like don't forget that they lick you with that mouth. So I'll stop there. I know like there's other things I want to talk about too with like joint supplements and waiting until your dog is at least 12 to 18 months to start doing like high mileage with you. Other things are just like positive enforcement goes a long way. Do not assume that your dog will listen to you no matter what. If your dog is anything like Avalanche, which I'm sure dogs are all very similar, Av doesn't always listen. She gets the call of the wild and she's just gone sometimes. And we have a tracking app on her collar now so that we can track her through our phones to see where she's at, which has been night and day difference when it comes to peace of mind. But yeah, don't always assume that they'll just come back because you want them to. And I think we've been talking about doing like a full talk about that. So I know I kind of rushed through all of that, but you can reach out and ask questions if
and yeah, Kristen, definitely. We're going to lock down a date for a Monday call so you can kind of go deeper into all this stuff. Cause I know you've got a ton of experience with it. And it's important because a lot of you guys run with your dogs. I think, sometimes the dog can add quality to the run and it's a nice experience. But other times I think the dog can be a hindrance to good training too. Especially if you're doing interval training, if you're doing hill repeats, if your dog is stopping, when we run with dogs, sometimes it's like, the first mile is the worst. They like sniff everything. They stop every 5 seconds. They have to poop, and it takes a little while to get into the flow of the run. Kylie, I know you do like a lot of just regular around town runs with Ellie. Do you have any like specific tips?
I usually kind of think of training with the dog as, you don't want to overdo it either. I actually don't do 40 to 50 miles a week with Ellie. I actually am down more like 20 to 30 because I try to give her days off. And also if you are running with your dog, I think it's important to kind of build them up like you would think about it like your own training plan. So don't like, if they're not used to running, you don't want to like go from 0 to 40 miles. And just, running around with her. I will say like, she kind of gets bored running on the roads and pavement. So I have not been taking her as much on like the just around town, everyday type thing and have been trying to mix it up on like trails and stuff, because I think dogs actually, I mean, I don't know, but she definitely gets bored. So I've been trying not to take her on like the same loop every time now, because she's gotten to the point where like she won't even want to like leave the parking lot, because she's like, I don't really care. I'd rather go play with my brother. So keeping it interesting for them. And then like joint wise, I think it's important to kind of mix it. If you have access to trails or soft surfaces, I'm trying not to do too much on the pavement now.
Yeah, nice. I think that's a good tip as well, just for your dog's health. Getting onto the soft surfaces. It's important for runners to kind of mix in some soft surface runs from, kind of the weekday neighborhood miles as well too. So I guess the same principles hold true for you that they hold true for your dog as well. Awesome. Yeah, I'm looking forward to kind of diving deeper into this conversation. Specifically for me, I feel like the things that athletes want to hear is like, how do I be productive on my runs while taking my dog with me? How do I make sure the dog doesn't, undermine the intention of my training? Yeah, Drew, did you kind of want to offer? I know you run, or you were running with your dog quite a lot.
Yeah, I ran my dog. His name is Kevin, and he's awesome. And Kevin and I used to run a lot, kind of like Kylie and Kristen have both said, building up mileage for them is just like building up mileage for you. So it takes time and it takes patience and it takes practice, but you'll get there eventually. With my boy, we got up to where we would run between 40 and 50 miles a week. And he just loves that. Like that was good for him. I would do 70, 80, but I'd cut it down to 40, 50 for him. Because days off, very important for dogs as well. With 4 legs, it takes them a little bit more in terms of like effort to keep up with someone that's more efficient running on 2. With dogs, when you're off leash, like out in the woods, sometimes, and again, we can all touch on this when Kristen does her thing on a Monday. But important to understand that sometimes when dogs see like a squirrel or small animal and they take off after them, not to freak out that they're not going to listen to you. They're not going to hear you. They're going to tunnel vision and go after different things. So just be careful when you are kind of off leash, understanding the risks of that. And then I just threw up in the chat, just as far as like etiquette goes with dogs. I unfortunately had Kevin trip multiple people on group runs before because he's a front of the pack kind of runner. So trying to keep him towards the back of a pack of a group run is really important for safety purposes, making sure your dog doesn't like stop suddenly to smell something or stop suddenly to use the bathroom and end up hurting one of your partners.
Yeah.
I think piggybacking off of that, I know that I used to live in Portland, Oregon, and Forest Park was in my backyard. And I had a different dog then. But there were so many people within the trail community that would like, people get really upset if you're in a on leash area with an off leash dog. So just, be self-aware of that and don't let your dog, run into anyone or trip anyone. I mean, I've tripped over Av while I'm running with her. But I think Drew's point is valid, like staying at the back or just being very cautious because you don't want anyone to get hurt because of your dog.
Yeah, that's awesome. I actually, when we had our old dog, Walt, I got a hamstring injury because of running with him, doing my strides. I don't recommend doing speed work with your dog. Tie your dog up, let the dog wait, or leave the dog at home for those days. I think it's easy to start going too fast because the dog gets so stoked, especially if you've got a fast runner. Don't mess with it. You can get an injury from running with your dog. Tie your dog up at the bottom of your hill that you're doing repeats on. Ideally when you're doing your repeats, you're using the same hill the entire time. You're going up, you're coming down. You're going up, you're coming down. You're going up, you're coming down. Dog can stay at the bottom while you do your repeats, and then you can go off and run the rest of your miles easy together. Soon as you start putting the dog in the space of going fast, opportunity to trip over the dog is distracted, all of these things. I would say dog's great at home on those days. Use the dog as an opportunity for a nice recovery walk or something like that after. Not sure if Kylie, Kristen agree, as they both have dogs and do workouts, but that's kind of my, that would be my like very specific tip. Don't include the dog on your speed work.
Yeah, I usually, if it's possible, based on the route that I'm doing, I'll either take Avalanche with me for the warm up, drop her off at home, do the workout, come back and get her for the cool down, or just do the cool down solo. But, you know, if it's possible to break it up in segments with your dog, if you absolutely have to run with them, that's one way to do it. So you're not doing the speed work session with your dog.
That's awesome. Yeah. Well, great. I feel like we'll try to touch more on this in a future call, just specifically about the dog runs and dog running health and all of this stuff, which I feel like Kristen is a super expert on it. She's been running with dogs for as long as I've ever known her. But yeah, let's move on to another question here. Yeah, maybe a less serious question is, are there any Netflix recommendations that you have? And then this specific question asker says, we're loving Blown Away. It's a great British bake-off show. Okay, cool. I've never seen that show, but I'm sure it's wonderful. Yeah. Kylie, what are you watching?
We watched The Queen's Gambit. That was good. I think I put that on. I think I wrote that down. But that was like a month or two ago. I feel like we've just been watching. We haven't watched as many like series on Netflix, but we watched this movie last night, the Queen of Versailles or something, and it was the David Seagull story. It was a documentary on him. It was freaking hilarious. I was like, whoa, this is kind of crazy. Have you heard about it at all?
No, I haven't heard about that one. It's good though. You recommend it?
Yes, it's kind of disturbing. He was like a billionaire and then lost a bunch of money. They were trying to build this like the biggest kind of house in America that is supposed to resemble Versailles, and then he ran out of money. So it was like sitting there, and then he was trying to sell it for like $75 million. Anyways, it's good. I don't know if it's on Amazon Prime or Netflix, but it was a good one.
Oh man, that sounds it actually sounds really interesting. It sounds like something that would probably frustrate me, but yeah. What have we watched lately? Well, I think everybody at this point knows that we're big fans of Ted Lasso. That's not a Netflix show, but you know.
I think that was on Apple TV?
Apple TV, yeah, that's worth watching. I'd recommend. I'd say as a prerequisite to working with Microcosm is every athlete has to watch Ted Lasso.
I recently watched it's a new series. Sometimes I get bored. And I'll like Google like what are the best series on Netflix right now. And this one called Ginny and Georgia came up, and I wasn't too sure about it, but I got hooked and binged it in, I don't know, like 2 nights probably, like in and out of work. That one was really good. And then there's
awesome.
It's cool. It's about like I don't know, like a high school girl and her mom and whatever. But then we also watched this movie called I Care a Lot with Rosamund Pike, and that one's also on Netflix. And I was surprised at how good that one was.
Awesome. Yeah. Drew, what about you?
Okay, so Netflix is a lot of fun. So every night before I go to bed, just to like calm my nerves and get me chill, I will binge watch Schitt's Creek over and over. I swear I've watched every episode like 5,000 times. But recently got into 2 different deals. One's a series called Behind Her Eyes. Really, really crazy good, especially that twist at the end you'll never see coming. But super recommend that one. And then just last night, my wife and I finished or watched, it's kind of a documentary, not a series, but like an hour and a half. It's about like the college admissions scandal that's been blowing up in the news. And I thought that was really entertaining as well.
That's an interesting story. I'll have to check that out.
We just-
recently I watched the Tiger Woods documentary. That's on HBO, I believe. But I'd recommend you guys all watch that as well. Some of the takeaways for me from watching that documentary were the very obvious pitfalls of being too good at compartmentalizing parts of your life. I thought that the Tiger Woods journey is just like fascinating. But when you leave parts of yourself unprocessed from periods of your life, and you compartmentalize them, and if you're very good at compartmentalizing, you may achieve a lot of success. But at a certain point, there's always a reckoning or a breaking point where you have to confront your past. And so as compartmentalizers, all of us, people who have other jobs, other parts of our identity, we go out, we work, then we run, then we're family oriented, then we're dog owners, having all these different pieces of our identity. It's important to recognize when it's important to process different parts of your life, and to not like leave them unspoken about, especially if they're really deep issues, which was very clear about Tiger. I don't know if any of you guys have seen that, but I highly recommend it. In the past, we've talked about compartmentalizing stress and using stress to your advantage, especially before a race, before a big workout, all of that stuff. Obviously, Tiger Woods is able to do that at the highest level. But there are very obvious pitfalls, right? So any of you guys who know his story, you can recognize that. So I thought that was really interesting.
Sorry, TJ.
What's up?
I was gonna say, I think what he really needed was a BetterHelp subscription. Like he just needed a therapist, and I think he could have worked through a lot of that.
Yeah. We just figured out how to use our new health insurance to get online therapy, and we're pretty cool with that. Yeah. Doesn't come with a Netflix subscription, but is very necessary. If you guys don't have therapists, I would recommend that each one of you get one. Cool. Let's move on. What should we talk about now? We have so many questions this week. Okay, here's a training related question. I feel like we've kind of talked about this one a little bit. Gosh, everybody wants to run such long races. So get ready for my answer on this one. Another question athletes seem to be asking now is how to choose a race. We may know we want to do a 50 miler. Okay, great. But is there any advice on choosing a 50 miler that's a good fit? How do I choose a race? I think I'll start with answering this one. I think first and foremost, if you want to do a race, you need to choose a race that interests you. Not a race that is going to look cool when you tell your friends or post about it on Instagram. A race that speaks to you. For me, that tends to be races that have really interesting and challenging terrain. I like steep races, so I tend to look for races that are steeper, that are more technical. Why? I don't know. Maybe I like those challenges. Maybe those challenges speak to the deeper side of who I am as an athlete. So when I think about choosing a race, I think first about that. Then I always ask myself, is this something I would do if I couldn't tell anybody about it? Because it's very important that your goals reflect your values. They reflect you, who you are as a person, your personality. And if they are chosen in order to impress people, if they're chosen because you think people will think you're an athlete, if they validate certain things about you that you don't feel as comfortable with or as secure in, it's important to address that. Maybe you could utilize BetterHelp, which is something that, a good resource to kind of work through that side of things. Because in the end, sustainable goals are the goals that speak to the deeper aspects of who you are as a person. Running is just an extension of who you are. Running isn't this like independent identity. It's just another part of you. So I really want to be clear on that. That is my biggest advice. If you're thinking about any race, from a 5K to a 500-mile, 7-week, whatever they have going on now out there across the Sierra, you just think about if that speaks to you. Is that something that you want to train for? If it's a challenging race, you have to be able to go out and run on that terrain as frequently as possible, especially as you're leading up to that event. Other things that I think it's important to ask yourself about is, how am I doing physically? Have I been preparing for this for a while? Have I been building base for a while? Am I coming back from an injury? When is it appropriate to choose a race if I'm coming back from injury? We have a lot of athletes who really like to push the fine line between like when it's appropriate to go for a big goal after an injury and when it's not. And, you know, each individual person needs to make those choices for themselves, and hopefully can utilize some of advice from one of our coaches or whomever they're working with. But for me, when I think about these things for myself, I try to really make sure that I've got a lot of time between when I'm feeling healthy and when that goal is set. So for me, that's got to be 3 months at least. I think a proper build for a race is at least 3 months. So if I'm healthy today and I decide to race, and today is my first day of health and I'm back in, you know, finally training again, I'm not going to put a race on my schedule for at least 3 months. And I'm probably going to choose an ultra event. I like to go long, but I'm going to choose marathon or ultra, like 50K, something shorter, so I don't have to overexert myself in that first race. If your ultimate goal is to go farther, a lot of you guys want to do 100K or 100 miles, 50 miles. That's great, but make sure you set yourself up with stepping stones along the way. You know, so for a lot of people, that looks like maybe if today I'm finally back in health, working back from an injury, it's been a 3-month process getting back to health. Now I'm going to take 3 months to build towards my first race. I'm going to make that a shorter race, 50K. And then after that, maybe in an additional 3 months, I'll try my 50-miler. Really spreading those efforts out. One, because you need a lot of time to recover. We talk about this on a bunch of different calls, but all of the pounding from running, it affects your musculoskeletal system. Stress from other parts of your life also affect your system too. If you're dealing with an injury, something that might be nagging, if you're not feeling 100% confident in that thing, sometimes it's okay to just take a step back and be like, I'm going to do a shorter race. And I don't want to put that pressure on myself. I want to make sure that I'm prioritizing longevity and having a healthy running career over many years. I think sometimes what trips people up is that they feel like they have to do it now, today, now, this season. This is my only chance to run that dream race. But I think something, as you'll all notice as you mature as athletes, is that you have many seasons to go after these goals. You have many seasons to build, and in each season you get stronger, you get more resilient. Your body does, your mind does, the way your perspectives grow. And so, you know, it's a little easier to say, you know, maybe that goal is more appropriate in 2 years. Maybe that's more appropriate in 3 years. You know, something for me in my running journey is like, I always think I'm going to run 100 miles, and I've never run 100 miles. I'm like, this is going to be my season to run 100. And then I run a 50K to start off my season. And I'm like, hell yes, I love 50K. Why would I ever run farther? And I'm like, all right, I'll run 100 miles in another year. And I just put it off, and I just put it off, not because I am scared of 100, but because I feel like I gain a lot as an athlete by running shorter races. And so when I finally do run 100, I'm going to be a completely different athlete. than if I had done that 100-miler in the first year that I started ultra running. So I think, don't rush to make these decisions. Yeah, I don't know if any of the other coaches wanted to comment on this one.
Yeah, I'll jump in real quick if that's okay.
Yeah.
First, wanted to say LOL at TJ calling a 50K a short race. I guess it's all relative, right?
Yeah, totally.
But I'm kind of the opposite of TJ in that I like to go fast. I want my footing, like I don't want to run on trails a lot of the time, to be completely honest. I know this is a trail oriented deal, but sometimes I don't want to worry about where I put my foot. I don't want to worry about anything. I just like literally want to go fast for like a half marathon or a marathon. And so what I try to do when I'm picking races, I try to pick races that are conducive to my skill set, just like all of you should do. Like if you love climbing, find a race where there's lots of climbing. If you like, downhill racing, honestly, like that's a skill set in itself. Like pick a race like that, just whatever you're strong at. Sometimes it's good to pick those races as like confidence boosters because you know that you'll do well. Also try to find races that are closer to me in terms of proximity. I don't want to travel across the entire country every time I run a race. That's just kind of stressful for me. So trying to bring up a map and kind of start spiraling away from your house really, and then find out kind of what races are there. And thirdly, and I know this is like a big personal preference, but I like to really research my races and see kind of where my money's going to. Like, I think it's really good to make sure that you've got really awesome charitable organizations that are going to be benefiting from your entry. And I've always kind of shied away from events that are like straight for profit. Some stranger's just going to pocket all $100 or whatever and not really benefit his community or the community in which the race is being run.
I agree with all of that. And I definitely just want to say too, like, I definitely understand the need for speed. So typically I'm like TJ where I love 50Ks. Like that is such a great distance for me. But I also relate with Drew because there are half marathons that I do on the roads that I sort of use as like confidence boosters or longer tempos or speed workouts, just because I feel like if you're training for something like a 50K, you still need the speed along with the endurance. So sometimes it's a really good idea to drop distance when you're training for a shorter ultra.
I totally agree. Yeah, guys, great perspectives on that. I think it's okay to embrace shorter races. I love the idea of doing faster races too. And, Drew, we've got you on the team because we want that road running perspective as well. I think it's fundamental to have that. And we're all trying to get better as runners. Maybe our sub-discipline is trail running. Maybe your sub-discipline is marathon running, but we're still runners. That's kind of the first thing that we are in terms of our athletic identities. But and I really like the idea of like looking at races as to like, where is this money going? And to also seek out the opportunities that you have available. Like some of us, we can't afford to travel across the country to do a race, or we don't have the time off from work to take a week off to go to a destination race and things like that. And so I think
I've literally never like traveled out of state I've gone to Arkansas, but I've never like gone somewhere to race.
Yeah, but Arkansas doesn't count because you like families.
That's what I'm saying.
Arkansas.
It's like, it's not like a I wouldn't say like Mina is a destination.
No, not really. It's not. Mina is extremely rural. Great mountains.
If you want to try to eat vegan in Mina, good luck.
We had to do a day trip just because there was no food to eat.
I almost cried, like fully grown woman, like in front of my adult parents, like just crying because I was so hungry and tired.
Yeah. Take advantage of the opportunities that you guys have. Small races, mom and pop style races that like I like to call them, I think are the best. If you've got aspirations to run UTMB and some of these big races, that's all fine and good too. but you can gain a lot of experience doing the smaller stuff along the way. I know some people are really competitive and they only want to do races where there's a lot of strong competitors, and like that's cool too. But remember, think about races as a collaboration. You're racing yourself out there, but you have the support of many people behind you. So when we think about racing in that context, it's you and the course that you're running. How fast can you get from A to B? Are you trying to improve, maybe make a PR at that distance? Are you trying to stay well in front of cutoffs to show that you've improved your fitness and your economy? You don't necessarily need to run and line up against all of these amazing athletes to have your best ever race performance. So take advantage of the opportunities you have around. I think the small races actually can be a lot of fun, and it can be really less intimidating if you want to engage with some people in the community who are also at those races. At least I know for me, like when I go to bigger races, I tend to just like run the race and then go back to my car, and like I'm not like super social, and I'm just like fine with that. But like at more community oriented events, it seems lower key, and so I feel better about engaging with other people.
We have pretty different like finish line personalities. TJ just wants to go like eat his snacks in peace, and I want to like hug every stranger I can. Like I am a super spreader. I cannot be trusted at COVID events. Mm-hmm. I need to be vaccinated ASAP is what I'm saying.
Yeah. Awesome. Cool. I'm going to shift to a nutrition question. Maybe we'll have Kylie answer this one first. So speaking of eating throughout the day, what should I be eating throughout the day? We talk a lot about mid-run fueling, but what is it, like an athlete's eating habit? What are their habits supposed to look like during the day? Kylie.
So yeah, I volunteered to speak on this one because I feel like this is what I talk to people about every day. But trying to think about, I like to say, number one, the biggest thing I see is lack of planning for the week. So trying to get in the habit of even just a rough outline of like some balanced snacks that you can have available and an outline of like what maybe dinners you can have available at least. Is really, really key for people's success. And then thinking about your week in regards to training days and, which days are rest days, which days are long days, and thinking about starting with a baseline of 3. I like to say 3 meals a day. They don't have to be called breakfast, lunch, and dinner, but having like windows of time to get actual meals in for the baseline of 3, and then adjusting number of snacks based on your training day. So I like to say, rest days, you might not need as many snacks. If you're hungry, then eat, but at least building in a baseline of like 1 snack a day on like a rest day. And then on longer days, trying to work your way up to 3 snacks a day. So using snacks as like a vehicle for added nutrition. And then in regards to like what you should be eating, I really try to say like build your meals around. So start with your protein source and then make sure you have a carb and a veggie, and then adjust your carbohydrates based on your training is like a simple way to look at it. So increasing your carbohydrate serving for amount of training that you're doing. Obviously people have different styles of eating, vegan, vegetarian. Some people eat meat, so I'm not going to say like you have to eat a particular type of protein or anything, but just making sure that you kind of get in the basics. And it does sound simple, but I would say like 95% of the people that I work with do not have meal composition dialed in. So trying to think about how you might easily be able to keep things in your house that would allow for you to adjust your meal composition based on your training too can be helpful. So having, easily available carbohydrates like cooked rice already, and then you can like up your carb servings on harder days, or keeping like bagged salads or bagged greens in your fridge so you can like add a side salad. So even like the people that say they have no time or are like lazy, we can, you can figure out solutions that are really easy to increase your carbohydrate and fruit and vegetable servings.
Awesome. Yeah, I think there's just so many good tips in there, Kylie, especially about meal composition, really dialing in the macros, and then also, adding in snacks, right? Because it's really important for athletes to avoid that hungry feeling throughout the day. And it's also, athletes who are trying to get some extra protein in, especially athletes who are maybe running the higher side of their weekly volume and trying to really build up in their training, going through a time where their volume is higher. That protein is really going to help with muscle repair, soft tissue repair. And if you're not getting enough protein in, you're going to feel fatigued, you're going to under recovered. So, those snacks are a really great way to get some extra protein in and spread that protein intake out throughout the day so you feel more satiated. Kristen, you mentioned snack alarms. What is that all about?
All about the snack alarms. I've been working with Kylie on this, and I can't remember if it was I think I'm just going to give credit to Kylie for this, but I have alarms on my phone, like, because if I'm super focused on work, like there are days where I'll eat breakfast and I'll start working and I look up and it's 6 o'clock and I'm just like, oh God, I haven't eaten all day. And I'm so bad at that, but I'm getting better because of the snack alarm. So every 2 hours in the afternoon, my phone buzzes, and you know how you can like label your alarms? It's literally snack alarm, snack alarm, snack alarm, like go eat something. And it's made such a huge difference because I think for me, protein and iron are things that I tend to lack in my diet. So, it's like asking the same old question, like, where's the protein? Where's the iron? Things like that. So I know that I can take, a bowl of cereal and a giant scoop of peanut butter. And my run feels great after that because I don't bonk 2 miles in. So would highly recommend.
That's what we did. I'm proud of you, Kristen. That is what we talked about doing that. And then also talked about like identifying the protein source and iron source in your meals and snacks. So perfect example of someone that's doing what I'm asking them to do.
Yay, getting there.
Yeah, nailing it. We've also worked with Kylie a little bit on trying to dial in, the specific amount of protein.
I eat a ton of edamame now.
Yeah, that we need to get in each day based on our training volume, as well as, how to get more iron into our diets. Something that we saw.
Adding flaxseed to just like everything that'll sit still.
And if you guys don't have it, I would recommend a very large cast iron skillet for your kitchens. Great way to get some extra iron into your meals. That
was one of those things that I was like, oh, I feel like that's one of those dumb life hacks that you read about that doesn't make a difference. But and Kyle, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it adds like 15% more iron to anything you cook in it.
There's been some studies that have showed that it can add up to 20% more iron to your food.
It's huge.
Yes, cooking cast iron.
Yeah. We got one that is so large that we physically cannot put it away. So we are forced to cook it.
Every day we cook in it now.
Life hack. It's the best. Have a tiny kitchen and a big ass cast iron.
Cool. Thanks, Kylie. And I love the snack alarm idea. I also like the idea of cooking once and eating 2 or 3 times. If you're a busy person, cook and use that as meal prep. If you're cooking protein, you can save some of that protein for the next meal. And then you just add in things that are quick and easy to cook, like rice, or you add a salad with that, etc. If you've got questions on this, Kylie would love to work with you. We'll plug Fly Nutrition. She works with a lot of our athletes, especially in dialing in meal plans and race nutrition. So utilize that resource. I would definitely recommend it. I know that has helped us a ton. All right, probably our last question In reading Zoe's articles on environmentalism, reducing consumerism has been on the forefront of my mind. Not sure if this already exists, but I was wondering if you had a microcosm garage sale type thing, a forum where we can give away or sell used items. Not sure if that's something Microcosm is interested in, but I wanted to throw it out there.
I love this idea so much.
I do too. Like, I think so number one, if you can make definitely, okay, so low hanging fruit in terms of like examining environmentalism through the lens of being a trail runner, first thing you can do, eat in a way that more accurately reflects your climate values and just stop wasting food. Like find start composting yesterday, stop wasting food, eat everything you buy, free stuff before it goes bad. Like this is one of the biggest things you can do. One of the other biggest things you can do is reduce the amount, like I am a professional gear reviewer and I have literally just stopped reviewing gear in the way that I used to because morally it is incorrect to insinuate that it is ethically okay to buy things. Don't buy things as much as possible. Don't throw things away as much as possible. And I feel like in doing research for the most recent edition of Trail Runner, the apparel industry contributes more greenhouse gases to the atmosphere than all flights. So like, if you're signing up for a race, don't get a t-shirt unless you're just like, you really need that t-shirt and are like totally sure you're gonna wear it, because like things like that, like this like really kind of like not super, like just don't, like do not decrease the demand on dumb clothes and dumb gear as much as possible. I'm not saying you shouldn't buy new socks, definitely change out your shoes every 400 miles, right? Like there are some things that we can't control to the extent that we can control other things. So reduce, minimize your use of apparel. I would love to start up like a microcosm. I bet we can do like a little page within the page or like an event or even a Google Doc where we can all post.
Well, what I've actually seen is athletes just utilize the discussion feature on our Facebook page.
I'm wondering if there's a way, because we have a lot of athletes that aren't on Facebook too. So maybe a Google Doc.
Okay.
Or something that can be updated.
I love that. And I think too, going off of what Zoe said, before I buy anything now, I always ask myself, like, is this going to be important to me a year from now? Like, do I have to have this race shirt? And the questions, like the answer to that is always no, you know, and a lot of the stuff that I've had for so long because I'm just such a firm believer in the, like, if it's broke, fix it type of thing. And being engaged to like the world's most minimalist has helped, but it's still like, I understand like the pull to keep things, but just be realistic. Like, you know, flip your hangers around if you use them and then go back 6 months from now and like, look at everything that you haven't wore for 6 months. Like you obviously don't need it. Just things like that. And then just being super conscious of everything that Zoe said.
Yeah.
Repair your gear.
Repair your gear. You know, they're like Patagonia will repair gear. REI will repair gear. You do have to, it's not free, but neither is anything. In Carbondale, Ragged Mountain Sportswear will repair your gear. Boulder Sports Recycler in Boulder is another great resource. I think Neptune Mountaineering might even do some amount of gear.
Even with like puffy jackets and stuff, if the down is kind of going out and the temperature rating isn't what it should be, you can get your sleeping bag or your puffy jacket refilled. You just
can get it refilled. And also, the poor man's version of that, put it in a dryer with a couple tennis balls and it'll flip it back up a little bit.
Really?
That also works.
Oh, that's
I mean, if like the feathers are like straight up falling out of it, you do have to add feathers back in at some point. But if it's just kind of like a sleeping bag that's lost its loft and it's starting to feel lumpy and like uneven, rock and resole is awesome. Great. Yeah. Throw your down in the dryer with some tennis balls. Nick, if something is less waterproof, Nick wax it. And I'll put all these articles on the recent articles I've done for Trail Runner on this topic on the page. But let's start a Google Doc of things we can.
I will also say that having tenacious tape or some sort of gear tape, like literally, I use tenacious tape all the time, whether it's on my sleeping bags. It's like sometimes like I'll try to get out of my sleeping bag too fast and I'll tear the, the fabric, and then all the feathers are like, I guess, or even with my jacket when it's like 800 down fill and I'm like 799, 798.
Yeah.
Put some tenacious tape on that shit and it saves so much money.
Yeah, I'm just going to brag on TJ. Despite being a sponsored athlete, he, instead of getting new things every year, he's had this jacket longer. Like, he's known this jacket longer than he's known me. And, he's been sponsored by the same company and just continues to like repair it, albeit not super effectively. But I think that
one
just
needs Gorilla
demonstrates
Tape.
like, I think that so long our culture has had this really toxic relationship with gear and feeling like you need a new thing every season. And I can say, as someone that professionally has tested like everything, I've literally, there's maybe been like 3 products ever that I'm like, oh yeah, I feel okay about telling people to buy this. Cause like, there's just like, people aren't really reinventing the wheel. So just don't buy stuff. Like, no matter what any company is telling, I come here as an ambassador of, anti-capitalism and trail running. Like, don't buy stuff, fix stuff. No one has really, besides like a carbon shoe, there's like really not that much it's like that great about new stuff coming out. Buy new shoes, buy new socks, make sure your hydration vest works and like fits you, but you don't need new stuff all the time. I say this because I'm a person that struggles with those exact thoughts. And like, I like to look cute and I like to have stuff, but I also want to live on a livable planet.
Yeah.
And it's hard.
It makes a difference to try not to be an over consumer.
Yeah.
Just consume what you need and let the other stuff go. I think it's important to realize that when you buy things, you get a validation feeling, and it's okay to, from time to time, experience that. But when you do choose something, it should be something that you feel like you can have for many, many running seasons. It's important to buy new shoes. I actually recommend, maybe replacing shoes closer to 300 or 350 miles.
It depends on the durometer of the foam. So
Totally.
Like the softer the shoe, the quicker it's going to break down, essentially. So things like Hokas and Nikes. Hokas and Nikes tend to not last as long as other shoes. And that doesn't mean you should avoid them. You should always get the shoe that feels best for you. Like the incorrect climate hill to die on is over wearing shoes. There's like 9 million other things that are more effective. Everyone write your senator today about something, and then like don't worry about whatever shoe you're wearing.
Maybe you could
start composting. I would love to challenge everyone to start composting. We just started composting.
We have a compost. If anyone is in the Sedona or Flagstaff area, we're moving next week, and we have 6 months of compost that we cannot take with us. And I don't want to just throw it away.
It's gonna be the first thing in the Microcosm gear swap, just like one bathtub full of dirt, free to a good home. Bringing Dirtbag Runner to a whole new
3 hardware garbage cans full of compost from the last 6 months.
I would love to challenge everyone to examine their relationship with gear, and I would love to. We're not going to do it this weekend because we're trying to get off the grid a little bit, but next week we'll start a document resource for people within our team to redistribute material goods that are related to running.
And I would also, Kylie posted an article, very comprehensive article that Zoe wrote on environmentalism and how it relates to trail running and all of that, and kind of your do's and don'ts in there, like what's effective, what's not. I would recommend you guys take 10 minutes to read that. The big hitters are eating a lot less meat and consuming a lot less goods. Those are kind of the big hitters that really make a difference. So if you guys are kind of examining your impacts, I'd recommend starting there and seeing, what little things that you can do at home to improve on that. And if you are thinking about diet change, I would really recommend doing that with the help of an expert like Kylie or somebody similar, because when you start to tweak your diet and your training, it's important to have supervision there and guidance.
Yeah, and this isn't something I talk about a lot because I think that our culture needs to have more food flexibility. And I think that everyone's relationship with that is very unique and special to them. But I've been a vegetarian for environmental reasons for 10 years now. And it is one of the things that I feel like helps me have a really positive relationship to my community and my environment. And that's something I would encourage everyone to explore in whatever way feels correct to them. And I don't think that you need to have as strict a relationship as like other people do on the internet who might yell at you about things. And this article that I worked on with Kylie, I think is really important because there's a lot of flexibility. Like, I'm not telling anyone they need to cut anything out tomorrow. I'm saying we all need to examine what the habits that we engage in on a daily basis today. And if you're someone who's like, I just like literally can't live a life that feels as fulfilling without nachos, like I hear you, like think about the things that are really meaningful to you and like keep those in your life, and then examine where you can make those other cuts. Do things like composting, be like a militant anti-food waste person, and then start to think about, like, I'm not going to yell at anyone for like wanting to eat cheese. Like, that's fine. Like, that is not the climate hill to die on. There's 9 million other things, again, that are going to be way more impactful. Like, honestly, again, tell your senator to like stop subsidizing corn and beef, and then that's like going to be a much more meaningful impact than you like having a Beyond Burger ever. So
cool.
Yeah.
Well, maybe we'll leave it at
Beyond
that.
is freaking great. I got my South Dakota born and raised dad, who's, how old is he? 62? Right. I mean, he recently had some health issues and heart attacks and stuff, but still loves beef and red meat. He was down here visiting last weekend, and we got him to eat the Beyond brats, and he loved them. Couldn't tell the difference.
Yeah. But read the next issue of Trail Runner, and we're hopefully going to do an entire Climate Monday long Zoe TED Talk spiel. So buckle up.
We're ready.
We're fully out of training topics, and we're just going to talk about
changing the world.
All right. Thanks, guys. We'll see you on Monday for a very informal call. So come ready to chat. Bye.